Shall I start?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
so this is my piece. Yeah, it is, it is what it is. But what is that? So that's actually what I think is interesting about this piece. I took a workshop at the Visual Studies, what is it called? Visual Studies Workshops in Rochester. And I learned this technique, which is electrophotography. It's basically an ancient Xerox. So I used a machine that looks a lot like our scanner machines. So it's like a box, and it has a glass cover, and it has a lid for the cover. And then I make a lot of images using plants and plant material. So I collected some leaves that I like, some plants, and I put them on top of the glass, and I exposed them. So it's a kind of photography that doesn't use any of the techniques of photography as we know it. You expose a plate, it charges the plate with electricity, and then you expose it in the machine, and then that receives some of the particles, get a charge to them on this metal plate, and then you stick it back into the charger machine, and you develop it using toner, which is exactly like the toner that we use in our Xerox machines. And you kind of flip it around, and the toner sticks to the charged parts of the plate, and then you reveal it, and you see what you have as the toner sticks to the plate. And then you reverse the charge by putting a piece of paper on that charged plate, and you stick it back into the machine, you reverse the charge, and that causes the toner to stick to the paper. And then you stick it into another machine, which causes the toner to melt onto the paper. So it is pretty much the same technology as our printers and our Xerox machines, but it's like the first version of that. So made in the 1960s. So anyway, you see it is, weirdly, it's a Xerox. So if you have any questions. Yeah.
I noticed the paper was had like a luminescence to it. Is that like because it needs that for the process, or was it a choice?
The toner melts on the paper, and then that creates that sheen. Yeah, and you can see here that this is scratched. That's caused by, it was actually the hardest part of this process is removing the, it looks like an old-fashioned kind of view camera plate. It's in a wooden frame, and you have to hold it down and remove the metal piece that keeps it from being exposed to light. And I accidentally scratched the surface of the plate when I was doing that. Not the actual surface of the plate, but the charged part. So some of the particles, the toner particles, it had that effect. So, yeah.
Do you want to just mention a little bit about how this relates to some of your other work? You said you usually work with plant materials.
This year I've been taking on workshops and learning different kinds of printmaking techniques. So I work in etching and lino cut, in relief printing, and I do a lot of photography on Instagram actually. And this, I'm sort of using the same kind of interest in plants. I'm interested in plants because I have to say that I'm an anthropologist, and I'm doing field work on the animals of Istanbul, and I'm thinking about my second project in the future as being about the domestication of plants. So I'm interested in human intervention in what we think of as nature, and what is natural, what is nature. And I guess visually I'm interested in that because I'm interested in the look of plants. And these are plants I just picked up around Rochester, which I would say are, we imagine that as being nature, like there's plants growing outside, but actually they're probably very selective species that can survive in that kind of urban environment. So that is part of the background of what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about plants. But I also just like the way they look, which is why I use them. Yeah?
Can you do color? Does it ever come?
Well, we tried to use some color toner. That was quite difficult. And I made one with black and white and color. It didn't turn out as well. And then I started to think because Xerox also made color Xerox. It turns out that the early color Xerox machines that they produce don't function any longer, but because these machines were so well made in the early 60s, they still function. So we used color toner from some of the earliest color Xerox machines, but it's tricky. So I kind of prefer black and white anyway. And the people who were teaching the workshop, one of them mentioned that some of the artists who have used this kind of technique in the past, they would spray paint some of the things white. And so that's what I did. I took some of the branches, spray painted white. So this white, very white thing is spray painted. You can actually see there's some variation in the tone. So white has a different effect than the green. The green makes it black. So I was also playing with that, light and shadow.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.